Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I'm going to be featuring two people that really need no introduction, and it was no surprise that both of them ended up in the finals of the EU Weekend Tournament yesterday. It is none other than Math is Might and Apuchi, and I think this game is an interesting one because, one, it's a standard game, which isn't all too common in the current meta, I would say. Typically, there's always at least one person in high MMR trying to play some aggro, especially with how good Saber and Hound openers are. But here we're going to get to see a little bit of a different comp. It is going to be standard Hounds from Apuchi, starting with Balls and Hounds. Now, I've featured multiple games where this setup is played mid-range, often asymmetrically on one side of the board, and then you go for these deep flanks and try to get towers that way. But now we get to see a bit of a different version of it. Now, standard Hound typically struggles because Hounds are low range, and that is one of the traits that you want to have in standard long range matchups. But there is a comp you can play to try and work around that, and you'll still be relatively aggressive, as in you will be the one pushing in, but you can do this from your towers if you layer your units correctly. So that's what Apuchi is going to show us today. Now, his opponent Math is Might has a very low hit point starter, 3,500 hit points, Supply Specialist, Sledge Crawler, always has been a very low hit point start. So for him, he kind of needs to make sure he starts winning relatively early because he can't afford to lose too much because otherwise he will simply be dead. Double Void Eye is going to be the pickup here. Kind of interesting. It does, as you can see, clump up a lot, but Void Eyes are very good into both Hound and Steel Ball. So it's a sensible pickup on round one. The alternative would have been something like maybe Marksman, but while it does at least solve your anti-air problem, it will have to shoot a lot to get rid of all of the Hounds and Steel Balls, which maybe isn't ideal. So I don't mind this pickup whatsoever. It does mean that Math is Might will have to think about how he wants to solve the air issue, right? Could still be Marksman on round 2 or 3. Could be Phoenix, but something along those lines will need to be purchased. As for Apuchi, currently doing pretty well. Crawlers will get the tower as the building there is distracted, so he will be able to at least get rid of a good amount of enemy units, but the matchup is a bit rough. Both Hound and Steel Ball don't really like to deal with sledgehammers, and never mind about the whole Void Eye situation, so as expected, Math is Might does win round 1, and he manages to get a bit of a lead here with the low hit point start he was given. Round number 2, immediate unit reinforcements and a very quick pickup with the arc lights for Math is Might. He also needed to fix his chaff clear in the upcoming rounds, so picking up arc light here is very sensible. Getting 2 deployments is lovely because you are deployment capped in this game, so every extra deployment you can get does come with some value. And you can see we just have double arc light in front of the towers on the left and on the right. This one is just here to really try and stall. Hopefully he can take out some crawlers, maybe even some hounds. It's not meant to win, but it's meant to make sure that the tower doesn't fall too quickly. It also does have the backup of the rapid fire gun, so everything should be fine. It even gets a little friend in the form of a Void Eye and some crawlers, so slowly but steadily we have at least something on this left side. Apuchi goes for round 2 Phoenix, very common play, and it is one of the units that you should pair if you decide to go for this type of Hound board. Typically what you will see is Hound, Crawlers, Phoenix, and then often Rhino to try and deal with any shaft clear units your opponent might pick, because obviously Vulcan can be somewhat common. Now I would say that in general you do not want to be playing Hound if your opponent has very easy access to early Vulcans, and when I say early, I mean round 2 or round 3. At that point, it might be very tough to stabilize, but if that is not the case, this is certainly something that you can try. And you can see here, Phoenix does a great job, and as I said, right, not buying Marksman on round 1 or 2 comes to bite Math is Might a little bit here, as he doesn't have any anti-air, and it means that Apuchi will immediately secure a round victory on this second round of the game. Steel Balls will get the tower. We can just speed things up here as we have a bit of a tower trade, and we need to chase all of the remainder of the units. I don't think anything else will survive, so it will just be the Phoenixes farming, but they managed to pick up an early level, which is somewhat significant. Will allow them to one-shot a whole lot of the enemy units, And yeah, in general, that will help, right? If you have to get rid of things like sledgehammers, void eyes, etc., you don't really want to be stuck shooting them twice. Round number 3, Incendiary Bomb shows up. Easy pickup if you're defending here. Just such a powerful spell that still for 150, 3-round cooldown. You are likely to see it, you know, come back. It's very similar to something like Orbital Bombardment in that sense, where if you see it on round 3 in these scenarios, it's almost always worth picking. And you can see both players will go for it. Now, aggressive positioning for sure from Apuchi. A singular shield here could have been worth it, but it is in front of that Stormcaller that was picked up early from Apuchi with the unit reinforcement. So I guess that makes Mathis might not really want to invest in it, perhaps thinking that it might die and then, well, you don't really get too much benefit from it. So it's a trade. We'll have to see who comes out ahead here. We have a Wasp purchase from Mathis Might. Now, Wasps are very useful at almost any point in the game, so it's never a bad thing to pick up. And it should have a good matchup into the Phoenix, but only the singular pack is a little bit scary. Now, no Fangs were picked up. It's not that common of a pick when you go for standard Hound, because you're the one pushing in, and that's not really something Fangs do very well because of their slow movement speed. So I like the pickup here. It does mean that a lot of the units will still end up dying. Even some of these sledgehammers end up in the fire from Mathis Might. And it's going to come down to the tower debuff timers here, because even though Phoenix is not great into Wasp, it is only one pack. So with 2 Phoenixes, you may be able to just get through that, and it looks like that will be the case. Keep in mind, Apuchi went for Chamber Compression here as his first tech, and obviously that is a tech that would get more value if you decide to use the range, right? If these hounds have to walk up a whole bunch, especially in asymmetrical boards like this, where you have part of the army that will eventually collapse, Chamber Compression is going to get a lot of value. And so that is why Apuchi goes for that immediately. 5 hounds have been purchased. He will need to get to something like range pretty quickly, but he should have the money to do so. Round number 3, and an expensive card pickup, Advanced Defensive Tactics for Apuchi. Again, as I said, he will probably want to pair this board with some tanky ground units. He already has the steel balls. He will likely add RHINOS as well at some point. So not a bad thing in the long run. But on round 4, it's a big investment. And you can see that it doesn't leave him with a lot of resources. On the other side, Mathis Might decides to skip and goes for range on arc lights. We do have a bit of a flank here as the Fire Badger Specialist from Apuchi has been used. And now a Crawler has been added in front of it. Just to try and stall, this Badger should be able to at least kill 1 Crawler pack, so it's kind of worth keeping around for the time being. And if anything, it pulls some of these units and perhaps opens up the tower the same way that you would in a mid-range Ballhound game. Oil gets used from Apuchi, just trying to slow down this main advance because Mathis Might's board is very heavily shifted towards the right, but have a look at that. Very nice missile. Doesn't hit quite as much as I thought it perhaps would, but still getting rid of a Hound pack, some Crawlers, and crippling steel balls is not a bad thing. And a very nice pull tactic here with the beacon from Mathis Might. It even pulls, right, a lot of Apuchi's units into his own oil, which I'm not sure Mathis Might expected, but it's a nice little extra, you know, to get a nice little bonus with this tactic. More Wasps have been picked up. Wasps not really answered from Apuchi. He did end up buying some Fangs, hoping that they would get rid of them, but doesn't really come to fruition. And round number 4 will be a Mathis Might victory, as Apuchi has to solve the Wasp problem now. But he's still relatively healthy. No massive problems here. Round number 5, bunch of powerful spells. Smoke Bomb picked up immediately for Apuchi. Electromagnetic Blast you could go for as well, although it does have a 4-round cooldown. Even Efficient Giant Manufacturing really could be tempting for Mathis Might, I would say. Something like Raiden here looks like it wouldn't be too bad. You could even consider something like Fortress if you think more Phoenixes are going to get purchased. So we'll have to see what Mathis Might decides to go for. Maybe it's a bit early to pull the trigger, so he might not want to invest into that if he's not entirely sure yet what he wants to go for. On the board, one thing we did miss is the Void Eyes with the suppression shots. A bit more of a classic Void Eye tech bar. Recently, we've seen a lot of EMP armor Void Eyes with the portable shield pop up, but Mathis Might still running the full carry bar. And, well, this tech still very cheap, very powerful, and does well in the early game, as we've seen. Both players decide to go for the smoke. We might have another trade here where neither player goes for a barrier. At least Mathis Might has no money for it. Apuchi has no money for it. And we see Shockwave being teched for Mathis Might. This is something that I have encountered more and more in, you know, the last week or two. With the recent buffs to Arclight Shockwave, it's not as bad as it used to be. You only lose 5 range instead of, I think it was 20 before, so a pretty big buff. And you definitely can get away now with just Arclights as your main chaff clear, especially in these early mid rounds. It seems like Shockwave does really well. Obviously, it's not a tech that scales with levels, so it should do better the earlier it comes out. And if you just spam enough Arclights, you will see that it actually does do a pretty good job. Still though, Wraith here for Mathis Might on the flank. Or no, not for Mathis Might, for Apuchi on the flank. Going to do very well. And those Phoenixes still quite pesky, as it does manage to win a round. And now we get the Raiden pickup from the unit reinforcement round on round 6. Perhaps Mathis Might now would have liked to have that efficient giant manufacturing, but I mean, you still get one for free from the unit reinforcement, so can't be too mad about that one. It could also show up later on, but if you already have 3 giants, maybe not the most valuable thing, because yeah, look at that, right? Triple Raiden with range. That is one of the, well, kind of results, I guess, of the unit reinforcements sometimes. You go from having no carries or very few to suddenly having triple giant on the opposing side with the tech on round 6. Scary stuff to deal with for Apuchi. He also picks up the Raiden, but does not decide to invest into it. And instead, it's going to be level 1 Rhinos with armor. So I did mention this. It is a bit of a classic for this composition. The idea being that the Hounds, the Phoenixes can all kind of stay behind the Rhinos as they walk in. And a lot of units that would be used to counter stuff like Hounds aren't very good into armored units, and especially the tankier ones like Rhino. Think of, you know, Arclights getting stuck, Vulcans getting stuck. Raiden is not really that good into these bigger units either. It's more so meant to deal with things like Steel Balls and Hounds. So it should be pretty good. It is only level 1 though. If we can grab some levels on these and make them at least level 2, that would help. But keep in mind, we have advanced defensive tactics and we have the defense enhancement 2 from the tower plus the armor enhancement. So these Rhinos, while they are level 1, I think they are actually quite close to being just at level 2 health, you know, through sheer bonus hit points. Right side still struggling somewhat for Apuchi, but a good debuff as the left side runs in. And it looks like he should be able to grab a victory here. The Wasps still quite pesky. Perhaps we do want a dedicated response to that at some point, but for now we seem to be getting away with things. And this lone Phoenix will just sit behind all of the ground units and should be able to clean up the Wasps. We do get a debuff, so very, very close affair, but going to be enough here for Apuchi to get a minor victory. The cat is out of the bag here though, right? I mean, for both players, we see Raiden commit for Mathis Might. We see some of these Rhinos for Apuchi, and here comes another efficient giant manufacturing. I mentioned that it could come back. Now, I'm not sure how valuable it is here. You will have to buy 4 more giants to make 50 profit. He does buy 2 more, so he's only 2 away, and I guess 1 away from breaking even. But it can sometimes be difficult to start putting, you know, 7, 8, or 9 giants on the board. Eventually you'll get there, but at that stage of the game, sometimes you have to ask yourself whether or not it was worth it. If he buys 2 more giants next round, I would say it is more than fine to pick that up, because the other stuff, well, Electromagnetic Impact, which gets picked up by Apuchi, is a very good spell as well, and Absorption Module 2 can be impactful, so I think it's debatable here whether or not it's worth picking up Efficient Giant, but not a bad move by any means. The Rhino manages to pick up a level, so as you can see, it's doing a really good job of tanking. There is 2 Raidens stuck onto it, plus the entirety of the left side, and it still has not died. Only now does it go down. A flank from Math's Might, however, does pull a lot of these units away, so while the Rhino was tanking, the board from Apuchi wasn't necessarily able to do too much with it, and still that right side is collapsing. A bunch of bubbles got purchased, the fire still landed, and neither player really had a ton of chaff left as everything burnt to a crisp. And now, you know, it was a minor victory for Apuchi, not too much damage dealt last round, but with 3 Raidens probably staying alive here, that is going to be a big counterpunch for Math's Might. And indeed, 3 of them stay alive. Couple of Wasps. Apuchi now down to 2.6k. Right side maybe needs a little bit of help. Math's Might going to pick up Improved Fortress. Not a card you see that often, but with Efficient Giant, and as I said, 2 more Giants picked up, it does justify that Efficient Giant manufacturing from last round. Oil back off cooldown now for Apuchi. Going to try and layer it pretty aggressively from the looks of things. And we'll have to see what Math's Might decides to go for. Right now, the Phoenixes, they are getting purchased and teched into. Triple Blue Phoenix with range. And with the Fortress purchase this round from Math's Might, it is almost guaranteed that next round Forte A will come out. Now, Apuchi does have both Energy Shield and Quantum Reassembly on the bar, but the timing of this is not amazing, right? I think it's a perfectly fine thing for him to do. I don't think he had much better options available to him, but yeah, not the best timing, sadly, with Math's Might deciding to go for the Fortresses. Fortress also a really good pickup in general, right? It'll help against the untech steel balls, and it should do a good job against the Rhinos as well, because he was lacking a little bit of extra DPS, and you can see now that with the Raiden level and with the Fortresses being improved and picked up on the left side of the board, suddenly everything is being stalled a lot more. Arc lights are clearing very well, as you can see. A couple of crawlers here just dying from the splash from that shockwave tech, and still right side collapsing heavily. Left side pushing in though. I mean, all the Phoenixes got stacked. That sometimes can be the best approach, both with smaller units like Phoenixes and with bigger units like these Giants. But it isn't enough, and Apuchi finds himself down to 746 hit points entering round number 9. Very rapid pickups from both players. We have advanced targeting system for Apuchi. Some expensive cards got picked, but the bonus range hopefully giving the Phoenixes the edge against these Raidens, which usually can be a very tricky matchup, especially later on. And on the other side, we have Acid Blast being picked up for Math's Might, layered beneath the smoke bomb. Nasty little concoction over there. Apuchi does go for photon coating, so he should be fine, at least with the acid. I mean, Rhinos are melee range anyway, so they won't really be bothered by that smoke. The rest of the units could be. Triple tank Hound already. That is what you would be working towards. It's something you would see on aggro, mid-range, and in this comp as well. You just want to get to that triple tech at some point to try and help with the chaff clear, and also help out with just kind of spot damage here and there, which Hounds are more than capable of doing. As you can see, third on damage currently is this Hound, and I think the other is not too far behind. More Rhinos now picked up on that right side of the board, so he is trying to stabilize on the right, or at least stall a little bit. And you do get range, in fact, on the Fortresses first here. So Math's Might valuing that over the Forte A. Perhaps trying to see if Apuchi would go for Energy Shield or Quantum Reassembly. With level 2 Phoenixes, it can be tricky sometimes to kill them with Forte A if those techs are being purchased. So I think going for range here, not a bad idea at all. It also keeps the Fortresses at bay somewhat, and you can see that the Rhinos are being taken care of very easily. Once again, the Rhinos here doing a good job though on the right side. And I was going to mention the Raiden matchup being relatively good, although the debuffs right now and this one Rhino just absolutely refusing to die. Okay, it will go down before the second tower falls, but it bought a lot of time, and somehow the right side managed to stabilize, get a tower debuff, and that's allowing these Phoenixes on the left side to get rid of even the level 3 Raiden, which sometimes can carry games on its own. Math is Might down to 1500 or right below, and on round number 10, with the unit reinforcements, it still could go either way. Math is Might very quickly picking up a Scorpion. I imagine that gets sold, and we have a Typhoon pickup for a Poochie. Not sure about that one. Typhoon, not good in Standard. Terrible into Fortresses, and not really that good into Raiden either, unless you started scaling them. We're going to get a bit of a flank, but that will have to spawn in, and there's no, you know, quick teleport. So you will have to wait 8 seconds with this turning. I'm not sure if that was worth it. I think maybe it should have just been a Scorpion cell there, but we'll have to see how this plays out. Still, right side was a big issue, but suddenly Math is Might, with the cash injection from the Scorpion cell, manages to triple tech his fortresses. Barrier and Fort AA have been picked up. And 2 more fortresses on the right side as well. Now, EMP is back off cooldown. Will EMP 2 of these Raidens and as well damage these barriers. So, pretty good spell here. Perhaps buying enough time for a Poochie, who feels he needs more damage. I was going to say, likely needs to tech into the Phoenixes a bit more, but has Launcher Overload. Now, Launcher Overload is not that much worse than Charge Shot. It does have less DPS, but it has less overkill, so it kind of all depends on, you know, how much the Phoenixes have to retarget. And with level 3 Phoenixes, you should at least be able to get rid of the level 1 Fortresses, but man, that Fort AA already making quite a dent in some of these level 3 Phoenixes, which don't have Quantum Reassembly yet, so if they go down, they're dead for good. Already 1 pack there taken out. Level 2 Phoenixes crippled as well. Right side doing alright. Even a Rhino chopping down one of those fortresses, but it gets distracted. And this is something that often happens when you go for these type of flanks, where the late chaff kind of annoys you. Thankfully, the hounds from the middle do collapse. They get a debuff. But I don't know if it's enough at this point to get rid of everything else, right? No anti-air left, all of these Raidens still alive, and that will simply be game by virtue of having no anti-air left. It's kind of the scary thing, I guess, late game, when you're playing Phoenix against Raiden. There's a high chance that at some point your Phoenixes will get picked off, and then you have nothing left to get rid of the Raidens. So after 10 rounds of play, it will be Math is Might taking the crown, winning the EU Weekend Tournament. So congratulations to him. Still, I think that there's good stuff in here. And, well, one, I wanted to try and feature, you know, a bit more of a standard game, even if there is some aggression, of course, coming in from a Poochie. And I wanted to showcase, you know, this comp, which is, you know, a little bit less common. It does take a few tries and a bit of knowledge to pilot correctly. But I think a Poochie here definitely showcased what the right setup would be. If we go back to round 10 and try to take over, I think there is a way to win here. I think the Typhoon pickup just wasn't really worth it. This should just probably be Scorpion into Cell. We definitely want to loan temp range, temp speed, make sure that all of that is covered. There are no spells available. Everything has been used, so we do not need to shield in this case. EMP I'm probably going to throw over here to try and hit at least the blue Raiden. And then honestly, I think we should just abandon the right side. I think what we should do is maybe grab these Phoenixes, beacon them over to the left side, and then go for melting points. Because I just do not like this matchup right now. I just don't quite trust having to deal with all of these fortresses. Probably having to deal with Fort AA as we've seen, but I think that is somewhat predictable. So I think melting points will just be a bit more solid. Also against the Raidens, it's not a bad matchup. Let's level this tower at least twice. And let's maybe put like a missile here, maybe here if we can catch the wasps. That would be kind of nice. And then maybe level the hounds, and that would be the round done with. Let's see. I think this could be a little bit better. Melting point does manage to lock on. Of course, it would be nice if we had something like EMP, although I now see that that is not on the bar. Immediate lock on there, though, onto that fortress. I kind of forgot that we have advanced targeting system, which really helps a lot. I don't think that, normally speaking, that melting point would have managed to lock on, but it's managing to get, you know, those connects with the fortresses before the chaff gets in the way. And the left side looks a lot better now. EMP'd Raiden's in trouble. High-level Raiden's going down. Now the right side is stalling, and you're making this guy walk through his own acid and smoke, which is a very common thing you can try and play around if your opponent decides to heavily spell you like that, right? So that would have been a victory. It would have just ended the game then and there. But, you know, some of this is with hindsight, obviously. But I think in general, if your opponent spells, okay, they've disappeared now from the board, but if your opponent goes for, you know, smoke plus oil or acid and oil, you can try and just kind of pull him into it, especially in these later rounds, and work around it. Because the nice thing about this whole board is that it's relatively mobile, right? Hounds are fast, phoenixes are fast, crawlers, etc., rhinos. So you can try and pivot them to a different side of the board. Anyway, if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about it and whether or not you perhaps saw this game happen live. If you want to stay up to date on my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.